I remember the day I found that letter like it was etched into the back of my eyelids. It was tucked away in the glove compartment of our old sedan, the one my husband, Tom, insisted on keeping even though it smelled like faded leather and old coffee spills. My hands were shaking as I unfolded the paper, the ink slightly smudged from time, but the words were clear enough to slice right through me. I forgive you, Sarah. We all make mistakes. It was his handwriting, no doubt about it, that neat, deliberate script he'd used for our anniversary cards over the years. But this wasn't for me. This was for her. The woman who'd shattered our marriage 3 years ago with her affair. And here he was, forgiving her, as if it was his place to wipe the slate clean without a word to me. I stood there in the garage, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead like an angry hornet, my heart pounding in my chest. How could he? After all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, after the therapy sessions where we'd rebuilt our trust brick by fragile brick, he goes and forgives her? The air felt thick, heavy with the scent of motor oil and dust, and I had to lean against the car to steady myself. Part of me wanted to storm inside and confront him right then, but another part, the one that had learned to swallow pain like bitter medicine, whispered to wait, to think. Because if he could forgive her so easily, what did that say about us? About the life we'd pieced back together? Let me take you back a bit, though, because stories like this don't start with a letter in a glove box. They simmer under the surface for years, hidden in the everyday rhythms of a marriage that looks perfect from the outside. Tom and I had been together for 22 years, married for 20. We met in college. He was the quiet engineering major with a laugh that could light up a room, and I was the literature student who dreamed of writing novels but ended up teaching high school English instead. Our life in suburban Atlanta was the kind you'd see in those feel-good family movies. A cozy 2-story house with a wraparound porch, hydrangeas blooming in the front yard every spring, and our 2 kids, Emily and Jack, who were the center of our world. Emily was our firstborn, now 19 and off at university studying biology, always calling home with stories about her lab experiments or the latest campus drama. She'd inherited Tom's analytical mind and my love for deep conversations. Jack, at 16, was more of a free spirit, into soccer and video games with that teenage habit of grunting responses but still hugging me goodnight when he thought no one was looking. Our home was filled with the sounds of their laughter, the clatter of dishes after family dinners, and the soft hum of the dishwasher late at night. I'd cook Tom's favorite, chicken pot pie with flaky crust, and we'd sit around the table, sharing the highs and lows of our days. He worked as a project manager for a construction firm, often coming home with dirt under his nails and a tired smile, but always making time for us. Those were the good years, the ones where love felt effortless. We'd take weekend drives to the mountains, stopping at roadside stands for fresh peaches that dripped juice down our chins. I'd lean my head on his shoulder as he drove, feeling the warmth of his arm around me, the steady beat of his heart syncing with mine. We had our routines. Friday movie nights with popcorn that always ended up scattered on the couch. Sunday mornings lingering in bed with coffee and the newspaper, his hand gently tracing circles on my back. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Solid, dependable, like the oak tree in our backyard that had withstood every storm. But even in those normal days, there were tiny cracks I didn't notice at first. Tom started working later hours about 5 years ago, blaming it on a big project downtown. I'd pack him lunches with little notes tucked inside, "Miss you already," and he'd text back hearts and promises of early dinners. I trusted him implicitly. Why wouldn't I? We'd built this life together, raised our kids with values of honesty and commitment. I was the one who organized family game nights, who volunteered at the kids' schools, who kept our social calendar buzzing with barbecues and holiday gatherings. Friends envied us, saying we were the couple that had it all figured out. Looking back, I see the signs I missed. The way his phone would light up at odd hours, how he'd step outside to take calls, claiming it was work. But I was busy too, grading papers late into the night, helping Jack with homework, driving Emily to her extracurriculars. Life was full, and doubt wasn't part of the equation. Until it was. It started subtly, like a whisper in a quiet room. One evening, as I was folding laundry in our bedroom, Tom's phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced over out of habit. We didn't have secrets, or so I thought. and saw a message preview from an unknown number. Thinking of you. Miss our talks. My stomach twisted, but I told myself it was nothing. Colleague, maybe. A wrong number. I didn't mention it. Instead, I smiled when he came upstairs, kissed him goodnight, and buried the unease deep down. A few weeks later, another clue. He came home smelling faintly of perfume, not mine. It was floral, light, nothing like the vanilla scent I wore. New soap at the office? I asked casually, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed it off, said it was from a client's meeting, and pulled me into a hug that felt just a tad too tight. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But that night, as I lay awake listening to his even breathing, the doubt grew roots. Then came the business trips, sudden, unexplained. He'd pack his suitcase with that efficient precision of his, kissing me goodbye at the door. Just a couple days in Savannah for the site inspection, he'd say. I'd nod, wave from the porch as he drove off, but something nagged at me. I started checking our bank statements more closely, noticing small charges. Dinners for two, hotel rooms that seemed extravagant for one. Each one was a pinprick, building until I couldn't ignore the pattern. One rainy afternoon, while the kids were at school, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold, staring at his laptop. We'd always shared passwords. Trust, right? My fingers hovered over the keys before I typed in our anniversary date. His email inbox opened like a Pandora's box. There they were, messages from Sarah, a name I didn't recognize at first. Can't wait to see you again, one read. Last night was magical, another. Attachments of photos, her smiling face, young and vibrant, with long auburn hair and eyes that sparkled with mischief. My world tilted. The rain pattered against the window like distant applause, mocking me. I scrolled further, piecing together the timeline. Months of deceit, stolen moments while I was home raising our family. Sarah was a coworker, someone from his firm. The betrayal hit like a wave, drowning me in questions. How long? Why her? What did I do wrong? I sat there for what felt like hours, the laptop screen glowing in the dim kitchen light, rain still drumming on the roof like it was trying to wash everything away. My tea had gone ice cold, but I couldn't move. Each email was a fresh cut, dates that matched his late nights, hotel confirmations, even a message where she wrote about how guilty she felt but couldn't stay away. Guilty. As if that made it better. I closed the laptop gently, like slamming it would make the truth disappear, and just stared at the wood grain of the table we'd picked out together on our 10th anniversary. That night, when Tom came home, I acted normal. I don't know how I did it. Smiled as he kissed my cheek, asked about his day while stirring pasta on the stove. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, usually comforting, but now it turned my stomach. He talked about work, laughed at something Jack said from the living room, and I nodded along, my voice steady even as everything inside me screamed. I waited until the kids were in bed, the house quiet except for the tick of the wall clock in the hallway. We were in our bedroom, him brushing his teeth, me pretending to read in bed. I set the book down and said, as calmly as I could, "Tom, who's Sarah?" He froze in the bathroom doorway, toothbrush in hand, foam at the corner of his mouth. His eyes met mine in the mirror, and I saw it, the flicker of panic before he rinsed and came out wiping his face with a towel. "Sarah? From work? Why? Don't lie to me," I said, my voice low but firm. I pulled out printed copies of the emails. I'd done that while he was still at the office, hands trembling over the printer. His face went pale as he read them, sinking onto the edge of the bed like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. "It was a mistake," he started, voice cracking. "It started as talking, someone who listened when work was stressful. I never meant." "How long?" I interrupted. 6 months, he whispered. "It ended 2 months ago. I swear, Lisa, I ended it. I couldn't live with the guilt. Guilt. There it was again. But the images in my head, him with her, touching her the way he touched me, whispering things in the dark, those wouldn't end so easily. I didn't cry then. I just asked him to sleep in the guest room. He begged, tears in his eyes, saying he'd do anything, go to counseling, cut contact completely. And part of me, the part that still loved the man I'd built a life with, wanted to believe him. We went to therapy the next week. A quiet office with soft lighting and a counselor named Dr. Ellis who listened without judgment. Tom was remorseful, open about how lonely he'd felt with the long hours, how Sarah had made him feel young again. He blocked her number in front of me, deleted everything. He came home early, helped more around the house, brought flowers that sat wilted on the counter because I couldn't bear to arrange them. The kids noticed the tension, but we shielded them, saying we were working through grown-up stuff. Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. Date nights again. Awkward at first, sitting across from each other in restaurants trying to remember how to talk without the weight of betrayal. He held my hand more, looked at me like he was afraid I'd vanish. I forgave him, or at least I thought I did. We renewed our vows quietly on our 20th anniversary, just us and the kids at a beach rental, the waves crashing as we promised to choose each other every day. 3 years passed. Emily graduated high school, Jack grew taller than his dad. Life settled into a new normal. Stronger in some ways, with better communication, more appreciation for the little things. Tom was promoted, but he turned down trips that would take him away too long. We laughed again. Really laughed, planning family vacations and dreaming about retirement. Then came the day with the letter. I'd been cleaning out the car for a trade-in. We were finally upgrading after years of patches and prayers. That's when I found it, folded in an envelope addressed to Sarah. Never sent. I forgive you, Sarah. It read, "We all make mistakes. I hope you found peace, and I want you to know there's no hard feelings on my end. You've been through enough." My blood ran cold. He'd forgiven her. Not just ended it, not just moved on. He'd reached out in his heart, absolved her, like her pain mattered more than mine in some way. I sat in the garage for a long time, the letter crumpled in my fist, the smell of old leather choking me. That evening, when he got home, I waited until dinner was over and the kids were upstairs. I placed the letter on the table between us. Care to explain this? He looked confused at first, then recognition dawned, and his face crumpled. Lisa, I wrote that months after it ended. I never sent it. It was for me to let go of the anger. Dr. Ellis suggested writing a forgiveness letter as part of healing. For you. My voice rose just a little. You forgave her for your healing? What about mine? He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I thought we were past this. I chose you. Every day, I choose you. But it wasn't that simple. Seeing those words brought everything rushing back. The humiliation, the nights I'd questioned my worth, the way I'd had to rebuild my trust from ashes. He'd forgiven her quietly, without telling me, like it was his burden alone to carry. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't forgiven her. Not really. Maybe I never would. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I just looked at him and said, I need time. The next days were quiet. He slept in the guest room again, giving me space. I thought a lot about dignity, about what forgiveness really means. Was it letting go of hate, or was it something I owed only to myself? Then, one afternoon, while scrolling through Facebook on a whim, something I rarely did, I saw her. Sarah, a mutual friend from work, had tagged her in a post. She was married now, smiling in photos with a husband and a new baby. Happy. And something in me snapped, not violently but decisively. I didn't tell Tom. I found her husband's profile through a simple search, public as many are. His name was Mark, a decent-looking guy with posts about fishing trips and family barbecues. I messaged him privately, not with rage, but with facts. Screenshots of old emails I'd saved. Yes, I'd kept some, just in case my heart needed reminding. Timelines, proof of the affair while she was engaged to him early on. He responded quickly, shocked, thanking me for the truth. Within weeks, I heard through the grapevine, her marriage crumbled. She moved out, faced the consequences of her choices finally catching up. Tom found out eventually. He was hurt, angry even. Why, Lisa? We were good. But I looked him in the eye and said, you forgave her for your peace. I exposed her for mine. We talked a lot in the weeks that followed. Tom was confused, hurt by my actions. But he listened when I explained how his secret forgiveness had reopened old wounds. It felt like you were choosing her peace over ours. I told him one night on the porch, the crickets chirping in the warm Georgia air, a glass of iced tea sweating in my hand. He nodded slowly, admitting he hadn't thought about how it would affect me. We went back to Dr. Ellis, unpacking layers we thought were sealed away. It wasn't easy. There were nights when resentment bubbled up, when I'd look at him and see the man who'd broken my heart. But we committed again, this time with eyes wide open. The kids sensed the shift. Emily called from college more often, her voice tentative on the phone. "Mom, is everything okay?" I'd reassure her, saying we were just navigating some old stuff, but I could hear the worry in her pauses. Jack was quieter, spending more time in his room with headphones on, but one evening he hugged me extra tight before bed. "Love you, Mom," he mumbled, and it nearly broke me. I didn't tell them the details, not yet. They deserved their father's image intact until they were older, if ever. Word got back to Tom about Sarah's divorce through a colleague at work. He didn't confront me about it directly at first. Instead, he came home one day with a heavy sigh, setting his keys on the counter with a clink that echoed in the kitchen. "I heard about Sarah," he said finally, as I chopped vegetables for stir-fry, the knife thudding against the cutting board. "Mark left her." I paused, wiping my hands on a dish towel that smelled faintly of lemon detergent. "And, did you have something to do with that?" I met his gaze steadily. "Yes," I told him the truth. He rubbed his temples, looking older in that moment, lines etching deeper around his eyes. "Lisa, why?" "It was over." "Because it wasn't over for me?" I replied, my voice calm but unwavering. "You got to forgive her in secret, heal on your terms. I needed her to face what she did. Not out of hate, but for justice. For my dignity." He didn't argue much after that. Maybe he understood, deep down, that forgiveness isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. We moved forward, but with a new honesty. No more hidden letters, no more unspoken absolutions. He threw out the old car the next week, and with it, that chapter felt symbolically closed. As for Sarah, I didn't gloat. I heard snippets through mutual acquaintances. She'd lost friends, had to switch jobs, was raising her baby alone now. Part of me felt a pang of sympathy. No one deserves endless suffering. But mostly it was relief. The scales balanced a bit, and I could breathe without the shadow of her unpunished actions hanging over me. Life picked up its rhythm again. I threw myself into my teaching, finding joy in my students' aha moments during literature discussions. We'd analyze stories of betrayal in classics like The Great Gatsby, and I'd see parallels to my own life, but with distance now, a teacher's objectivity. At home, Tom and I rediscovered small intimacies. Cooking together, his hand on my waist as we danced silly in the kitchen to old radio tunes. The kids thrived. Emily aced her exams, Jack made varsity soccer. We hosted a family barbecue for the first time in years, laughter filling the backyard as neighbors mingled, the grill smoke curling into the evening sky. But healing isn't linear. There were days when doubt crept in, like fog rolling over the hills. I'd wonder if I'd gone too far, if exposing her made me the villain in someone else's story. I'd sit in the quiet of our living room, the clock ticking softly, and reflect on what I'd learned. That forgiveness is personal, not obligatory. Tom had his version. I had mine. And maybe that's okay, as long as it doesn't erode the foundation we've rebuilt. One crisp fall morning, about 6 months after the letter, I ran into Sarah at the grocery store. Fate or coincidence? Who knows? She was in the produce aisle, picking apples, her baby cooing in the cart. Our eyes met, and she froze, color draining from her face. I could have walked away, but I didn't. I approached slowly, heart steady. "Sarah," I said quietly. "Lisa, I." She trailed off, glancing at her child as if for protection. "I know about the letter," I said. "The one Tom wrote." Her eyes widened. "He forgave me?" I nodded. "He did. But I didn't. Not fully. What you did hurt my family deeply." She looked down, twisting the apple in her hand. I'm sorry. Truly. I was lost back then, but that's no excuse. We stood there amid the hum of shoppers and beeping scanners. A moment suspended. I didn't yell or accuse. I just spoke my piece. I told your husband because secrets destroy. I hope you've learned that too. She nodded, tears welling. I have, and I'm paying for it. As I walked away, pushing my cart toward the checkout, a weight lifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but closure. I didn't need her remorse to heal. I needed to voice my truth. Back home, I told Tom about the encounter over coffee, the steam rising like a veil between us. He listened, then reached for my hand. Are we okay? He asked. I squeezed back. We're getting there. And we were. The scars remained, faint lines on the heart, but they made us stronger, more vigilant. I learned that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet message, a revealed truth. And in the end, it's about reclaiming your story, not letting betrayal define it. Months turned into years, and our marriage evolved. Not back to what it was, but into something more resilient, like a tree that's weathered hurricanes and grown deeper roots. Tom and I celebrated small victories. Anniversaries marked with quiet dinners where we'd toast to us against the odds. His hand warm in mine across the tablecloth. We traveled more. A road trip to the Smoky Mountains, where the mist clung to the trees like forgotten secrets, and we'd hike trails in comfortable silence, breathing in the pine-scented air that cleared the mind. I focused on myself too, something I'd neglected before. I joined a book club at the local library, surrounding myself with women who'd faced their own storms. Divorces, losses, reinventions. We'd sip wine and dissect novels about strong heroines, and I'd share bits of my story, feeling the catharsis in their empathetic nods. You did what you had to, one friend said, her voice soft over the crackle of a fireplace. It helped me see that my actions weren't vengeful. They were protective, a boundary drawn in the sand. The kids grew up knowing the broad strokes. We told them when they were ready, over a family meeting in the living room, sunlight filtering through the curtains like a gentle filter on harsh truths. Emily hugged me tight, whispering, I'm proud of you, Mom. Jack, ever the protector, asked if I was okay, his teenage awkwardness melting into genuine concern. They didn't judge Tom. Instead, it brought us closer, teaching them that relationships are work, forgiveness a choice, not a mandate. Sarah faded into the background, a chapter closed. I heard she remarried eventually, started fresh in another state. Good for her, I suppose. Life's too short for eternal grudges. But I didn't regret my role in her reckoning. It was the push I needed to reclaim my power. Now, as I sit here reflecting, 5 years after that letter changed everything, I see the lessons woven into the fabric of our days. Betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. Justice isn't about destruction. It's about balance, ensuring that actions have consequences so healing can begin. I learned to forgive on my terms. Tom fully, Sarah partially, myself most of all for ignoring those early signs. Our home feels warmer now, filled with the aroma of fresh-baked bread on weekends. The sound of grandchildren's laughter when Emily brings her little one over. Yes, she married her college sweetheart last year. Tom retired early, and we gardened together, his hands in the soil next to mine, planting seeds that bloom into reminders of growth. If there's one thing I'd tell my younger self, it's this: hold your dignity close. It's the quiet strength that carries you through the storm. Looking back on it all now, as the sun sets on another day in our quiet neighborhood, I realize how far we've come. The pain that once felt like it would swallow me whole has softened into wisdom, a gentle reminder that life's betrayals don't have to break us. They can reshape us into something stronger. Tom and I aren't perfect. No couple is after weathering such a storm. But we've learned to communicate with raw honesty, to hold space for each other's healing without demanding it match our own. Our family is tighter for it, bound by love that's been tested and proven. If there's a moral in my story, it's this: forgiveness isn't a gift you owe to those who've wronged you. It's a tool for your own freedom. Hold on to your dignity, speak your truth when it needs to be heard, and trust that justice has a way of finding its path, even if it's quiet and unseen. Karma, as they say, works in mysterious ways, but sometimes we give it a nudge to restore the balance. Darlings, I've shared my heart with you today, pouring out the raw edges of a life that's seen its share of shadows and light. If this resonates, if you've walked a similar road, I'd love to hear from you. Would you have forgiven her, or sought that quiet justice like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories keep this community alive. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for more real-life tales from the heart. Until next time, take care of yourselves and those you love. God bless.